Hi, everybody. It's John, and we are officially into week 7. I know you're probably as shocked and amazed as I am at how fast we have flown by the material in this class. We are heading into the last 2 weeks of the class, and we are continuing our journey on the ethics side of the class, the ethics component of this class. And I appreciate all the great engagement and discussion that we've had thus far. And I think, particularly with respect to ethical issues, that the engagement is really important. The sharing of ideas, sharing of ethical values and opinions is really critical to us getting the most value out of this class. And so I appreciate all of you willing to do that. This week, I want to talk a little bit about uh, as we dive more into this ethical component of the class, this concept of personal values or personal opinions versus professional duties and professional positions. And then I also want to, at the end, want to dive into the milestone project and just some thoughts I have as you're working on the final drafts of those projects. So, uh, with respect, and this kind of goes along with the assignment or the discussion question. Um, but sometimes our personal values or personal thoughts can conflict with our professional duties, and that's fine. I mean, that's just the nature of our responsibilities and duties and uh, associated with being a licensed practitioner. For me as a lawyer, for example, if I decide to take on a case, I don't do criminal law, but if I decided to do criminal law and took on a criminal defendant who who I think was guilty or is admitted to guilt, but I'm still defending this individual. That I may have personal a personal position that doesn't agree with what this individual did, but nonetheless, I have a duty as a licensed lawyer, as a licensed practitioner, to an ethical responsibility according to the ethical rules of conduct that I've agreed to follow and adhere to advocate for this individual with to advocate zealously for this individual. That's what our ethical rules require. And so certainly our personal positions or our personal values can conflict with our professional duties. Is this a bad thing? Are we terrible people and are we compromising our personal ethics if we choose to do this? I'm not answering that question. I think it's just something for us to consider. We whether we feel like we're compromising or not is for us to decide. But we each of us who are licensed practitioners have a code of ethics to follow. Let me put it in another context. If a police officer may personally believe that a law that he or she is required to enforce is wrong, but under the code of conduct for the police force, that officer is required to obey all lawful and reasonable instructions to enforce that law, unless there is a good and sufficient cause to do otherwise. That's from the code of conduct from one. I can't remember which state, but I mean this happens for everybody. Everyone who is elected by nature of their occupation to follow a certain duty, a code of conduct that may or may not conflict with our own personal values at times, depending on the facts and circumstances. So, that's just some food for thought, some consideration, some things for consideration as we head into the discussion questions as we close out this class. Again, I'm going to reiterate the concept of analyzing an ethical issue. So as we think about the ethical component of our milestone projects, we pick out the ethical issues. I would suggest strongly that we follow the same pattern of analysis that we've been utilizing for on the legal issue side, which is the IRAC method. Now, of course, there's no rule related to ethics, but we've been given ethical theories, ethical principles that can guide our thoughts, or through which we can at least apply facts and come out with a conclusion on those ethical issues. So, what is the ethical issue? What are the applicable, not rules, but principles or theories that go back to your one of your worksheets for week 1 to identify what those theories and principles are, and apply the facts that are applicable to the issue that you've identified to those principles or theories, and then come out with your conclusion. So I think very similar sort of pattern that we've been utilizing for legal issues. I don't have a lot of this week to discuss. I just wanted to bring up this concept. I just really think that it's important to think through that personally as we think about some of the facts presented in the discussion questions. So, other than that, I wanted to sort of touch on the final assignments as we head into the final drafts for our milestone projects. One thing I strongly emphasize to every class that I teach is, this class is a little unique in that the final assignments are really just final drafts of assignments that you've already submitted. I will strongly encourage you to not just, if you got a good grade on the first draft of those milestone projects, I strongly encourage you to not simply resubmit your first draft of those projects, for 2 reasons. Number one, if you look at the rubric for the final assignments, they are different. You think about the Ituraldi case. If you look at the rubric for the final draft milestone project, the rubric is more detailed. There are more sections. And so I am someone who just looks at every section of the rubric, and I grade based on the requirements of each section of the rubric. And so I think it's a mistake to just resubmit your first draft because the requirements are slightly different. So look at the rubric. Your best bet always is just to go down each section of the rubric and respond to each section, and that's how I'll grade. So the second reason is that sometimes I try not to, but sometimes something will pop out to me when I'm grading, or I'll miss something. That can happen. I'm human in grading, and so something could pop out to me during a rough draft that doesn't pop out to me, or vice versa in your final draft. And so so it could be slightly different. So a comment that I've received when I first started teaching once was, how come I got marked down for this in the or I didn't get marked down for this in the rough draft, and I did in the final draft, and the answer is maybe it just popped out to me in the final draft and it didn't in the rough draft. So that doesn't happen very often, and I try to avoid that by really just adhering to the rubric. But I'm human, and I'm grading a lot of papers, and it's possible. So I just ask you, the best way to avoid any of that is to follow the rubric for the final projects, and for all of the assignments, of course, but particularly for these final milestone projects. Don't just resubmit the rough draft that you've already submitted. I think that's a mistake. So anyways, as always, if you have any questions or comments, or want to talk through anything at all through the concept of legal analysis, or the legal components or ethical components, please feel free to reach out to me, and we can walk through it together. So I hope you have a great week. Great work, great engagement. Keep trudging along. We're almost there. 2 more weeks and we'll be done. So have a great one. Bye.